gamers, gals, non-binary pals. Back to more Twitter threads. Oh god, yes, I love yapping. Owner posted this thread. If you guys don't know, because I don't fucking stream it or play Master Duel in general, apparently the Duelist Cup is going on, and Owner, who's a YugiTuber within the space, YugiTuber VTuber, she said that if you're playing Stun in the Duelist Cup, you should honestly go play a different game or get another hobby. It's clear that you don't want to play the game and want other people to not play either, so why not try something more productive for yourself? Love yourself. You deserve better. First of all, I am God's greatest Stun enjoyer. I'm not even joking when I say this. I love playing decks that make other people miserable. I don't want to have fun when I play Yu-Gi-Oh! I want other people to suffer. Other people suffering makes me so happy, bro. It's kind of like putting someone in a box and then like slowly sealing it shut. It's like burying someone in a coffin. Like each nail, you can kind of feel like their will to live and struggle against the box, just like ever slightly slow until it like completely seals up and it's just like you're completely in my infinite Tsukiyomi of 5 floodgates and border, you know what I mean? It just feels so right in here in an amazing way. I love it. But I do understand that it's a very, very frustrating experience for basically fucking everyone. Like if you're the Stun player, if you're having fun with Stun, it is a high you will never experience ever again. But going against Stun, if you have like a bad matchup into it, is active like suicide watch. It is actually like, I would rather kill myself than fucking continue this duel. We have Jade chiming in. Stun should not be a playstyle allowed in any competitive activity. Ultimately, it's an issue with game design. Players should want to have fun actually playing the game. Nobody wants to spend hundreds of dollars going to events just to get floodgated and not play. Fuck Stun. And this is kind of the main argument against Stun, or sort of stalling playstyles in general. If you guys play Melee, there's a strategy called planking, and it's the idea where you play like Jigglypuff or Peach or someone, and because in these games, whenever you re-grab the ledge, you're fully invincible. If you just pick a character with very good recovery and very good like air attacks, like Puff, you basically are uncontestable, and if you're able to claim like an early stock lead, you're able to just keep this up for the rest of the match and sort of just infinitely stall your opponent out, because if they ever approach you, they're probably just going to lose, and even if they are able to punish you in some capacity, you're not going to be that much punished relatively to them because you're playing an air fighter. Yeah, you're able to literally just run down the clock, and it's a very like frustrating scenario because like it is a very valid strategy. Like this sort of style of gameplay is very valid, and not like, you know, in an ethical way, but it is like a winning strategy against like certain characters, certain players who don't know how to play around it, that sort of deal. And overall, like let's be fucking real. Like this isn't playing a fighting game. This isn't people playing a 1v1 sort of style game against each other. This is like one person hitting you with like the ultimate knowledge check of, do you know how to punish me in the exact perfect way and not fuck it up in any capacity? Because if you fuck this up, you are going to lose no matter what. But yeah, a lot of people do share the sentiment where playing these sort of decks is a very frustrating experience for the person on the other side, because it feels like you're kind of just in this coin flip of, oh, did like the runic player find their floodgates? Because if they found their floodgates, then I lose on the spot. But if they didn't find their floodgates, then like I win on the spot because they're playing just basically pure runic. And like even if I did find my floodgates, like am I playing the quote unquote correct extra deck monster ratios in order to like play through skill drain Gozen match? Or am I just like dead on the spot because I was forced to deck build optimally for the quote-unquote best decks in the meta? Anyways, activate Tikaboo. Exactly. It's just like this very, from like a competitive perspective, learning to play against rogue decks or decks with win cons that aren't quote-unquote meta is a very important skill to learn. Learning how to play through like a Drytron board or a Fluffle board or like an Eldritch board or a Labyrinth board is a very separate set of skills compared to learning the Yubel mirror or learning the Fiendsmith combo line or like the Snake Eye combo line. Like playing as Labyrinth, you have to memorize combo lines where you don't go through levels 6 through 9 monsters, because otherwise you're immediately going to get blown out by simultaneous equation cannon. Playing against decks like Runic forces you to hold all of your, you know, back row removal or, you know, disruption cards until you're able to set up like a literally unbeatable chain of just like Cosmic Cyclone, Twin Twister, Lightning Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster type deal. And your opponent isn't going to be able to have like 4 Solemn Judgments, you know what I mean? Even so, even if you are able to be prepared for these sort of decks, like sometimes like in best of 1 ladders, you just literally can't prepare for them. There's a reason why like you only get like 40 to 45 cards to play in that main deck. Unless you want to go over, you're not going to be having a great matchup versus, you know, stun relative to Snake Eye. I don't know how to tell you this, but Veiler isn't that good into a Spectre border. So kind of having like this option of choice taken away from the player is a very frustrating experience, to say the least. But House of Champs, surprisingly, knows VTubers. There's one person I had no fucking idea was in the Yu-Gi-Oh! VTube community. It's fucking Jonathan Moore, but fuck it. Let's see what this white boy has to say. Hard disagree, and this is shaming and gatekeeping. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel's world competitors were quoted being scared of running into stun as well as preparing it for a reason. If you're playing a competitive tournament, play what you are most competitively comfortable with. And that is also true. One of the big things regarding Master Duel decklist choices is the fact that like you couldn't kind of just blind pick the quote unquote best deck, because the best deck had a horrible matchup into stun if it lost the dice roll, because again, Master Duel is a best of one and this weird King of the Hill Hearthstone style format. So like sure, you could play like Yubel or Snake Eye, but you're gonna have a horrible matchup into like normal summon barrier statues set 12, which is why people were playing decks like this. People were playing Vanquish Soul, which had a pretty good matchup into stun because you were able to very easily remove the monsters. You were able to play stuff like Snow Devil or Imperm or Cosmic Cyclone or Fenrir, like a bunch of these cards which you aren't able to fit into normal decks like Yubel just because of the space and optimization. You are able to fit into these decks, and understanding that sometimes you just naturally have to make deck building concessions in competitive aspects is a very important skill to learn, and understanding that sometimes you could just have bad tournament runs or bad ladder runs is kind of just accepting the heart of the game. It's kind of like poker, where like sure, you can only play like kings, queens, and aces, but sometimes you're just gonna go against like 5-6 suited, and all of a sudden like your 80% turns into like a 65% win rate. It's like sometimes naturally variance is just gonna kick in and you're gonna lose a lot more than you're gonna win on like certain streaks, and sometimes you're gonna win a lot more than you lose. But a lot of people kind of tend to focus on the negative, you know what I mean? One Nightmare Phoenix activation cripples the average stun hand. My brother in Christ, chain anything. Chain Solemn Strike on Nightmare Phoenix. GG, go next, dog. Well, what about when motherfuckers summon like 500 monsters and have 500 negates, a lawyer, and a restraining order as an end board? What can I truly do? This is an example of hating the player and not the game when the game allows it. Yeah, I mean, objectively true as well. Like the extreme combo decks where like Snake Eye is able to end on like 5 million follow-up pieces, as well as like 500 pieces of infinite disruption and negates and whatever. That is also a frustrating part of Yu-Gi-Oh! That is just like the complete polar opposite of stun. Like one of my friends, Swanko, unironically says he likes playing against stun more than he likes playing against like Fiendsmith Snake Eyes, because at least stun does its combo fast, where it's just like, yeah, you know, stun will just like set 5 and like, you know, if you manage to beat them, then like you beat them, but if you don't, then you know, it's stun. Who cares? Like, you just don't have to really think about the fact that you can kind of accept that instead of having to wait through like a setup turn and to like maybe top deck like a Dark Roar no more after like 8 minutes of combo setup, just to like not draw one and immediately scoop. That's way more frustrating. And so your opponent just be like, set 5, pass. Until Konami bans every relevant floodgate, people need to accept that they are a part of the game. The problem with like that line of thinking is the idea that Konami will make a positive gameplay change. You know what I mean? Like, sure, you can say that Konami is going to care about the health of the game and eventually these cards will be answered, but what if they're just not answered and people have to deal with these cards forever? Because let's not pretend that Konami hasn't made cards before with the sole purpose of being scam cards. Like, there are a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That are designed to be like cards that scam wins and are very frustrating to play against and are basically just like floodgates, like Messenger of Peace, Grave of the Super Ancient Organism, Power Sink Stone, like Summoning Curse even. Are you telling me that like Konami has to like ban Jaugen the Spiritualist over something like Snake Eye Ash or Bonfire or whatever? There are over 500 floodgates though. Why haven't you made a top 10 floodgates video yet? What are the top 10 floodgates? I plan on making 20 different floodgate videos. It's like, number 1 is like Mystic Mine, 2 is like Skill Drain, 3 is it's kind of it. Like Soul Drain's near the bottom. Oh, Pure Order. Oh yeah. Anti-Spell. I miss IO. I remember one time at like a regional flight, I was playing like Dino, and in the finals against Sky Striker, I opened a Pure Order twice. I was playing like 47 card dinosaur. And like turn 1, I did the Nightmare Griffin, like the Scrap Golem, Curious, and like Curious and like Imperial Order, and then like reset it with Nightmare Griffin. And then game 2, I just naturally hard opened it, and I was like, oh, I guess we win. Most of these cards are like kind of the same. Like Royal Up got banned before it was like really good, and like Vanity's Emptiness just kind of took the place. And when Vanity's kind of got lost, people just started playing Summon Limit. Azathoth, I wouldn't say Azathoth was that bad, because Azathoth was kind of like its own thing, you know what I mean? Azathoth was more like a deck. There's no real way to like quantify it, you know what I mean? These cards could definitely be like reorganized in some capacity. Also, Abyss Dweller should be in here somewhere. Shockmaster, oh my god. So many fucking floodgates. Oh my god. Remember when this was like an argument about stun, and then we just started talking about combo decks that also just made floodgates? Dark times. Stun is unhealthy for the game and shouldn't exist. It turns away players and makes things worse for everyone. If anything, promoting stun is a worse form of gatekeeping. It prevents new players from joining, makes existing players quit, also has the same 20 people top events. I kind of disagree. It is, in my opinion, it's honestly like a great introduction deck. Like if you give a new player stun, they're obviously going to scam some wins. But if a new player doesn't know like what decks do and how to react properly and how to use certain cards in certain contexts, then obviously they're not going to perform that well. They might go like 1-3 and like the one win's going to be a fucking bye. But stun is honestly a pretty good deck in my opinion for teaching people the fundamentals of the game, not from like a self gameplay perspective, but from a macro perspective and a game sense perspective, where you kind of do your best to like read your opponent and what your opponent likely has in terms of like cards and plays based on the sort of avenues that they take. Because like obviously someone who's like leading like the Diabell Star pitch Snake Eye Ash probably has like at minimum a normal summon in their hand, you know what I mean? Or like someone who's like activating one Fiendsmith, you probably shouldn't throw every single negate at it, you know? Like maybe you should like take a minute to try and figure out what they're trying to do specifically. Stun is a great deck to help new players learn how to interact with their opponent's deck. Exactly. That is probably like the #1 argument for when people are like,
stun is not a very skillful deck. Like stun is just autopilot.
No, stun is a deck where if you fuck up one interaction or waste like one floodgate or waste one negate, your opponent is immediately going to win because you have no real pressure to ever kill them, in the sense where like sure, maybe your opponent like passes one turn, but you need to make sure your follow-up turn is spent getting the right resources in order to effectively stop your opponent the next turn, and then the next turn, and then the next turn, because otherwise you're fucking cooked, because your opponent could just redo the same combo play over and over again. Like maybe not if you're, you know, a fucking Runic player and banishing their whole deck, but you get the idea. Well, all the people I know have played stun have played it after seeing what it does to the decks, which makes the decks they first made look like a goat. I don't even know what that sentence says. In this past month, this has maybe been one of my top 3 least interacted posts. I really thought deep down there were other people who had a guilty stun pleasure. Like after going 0-3 with a real deck, sometimes you just gotta roll up with stun. Bro, whatever it takes. Bro, sometimes you just gotta normal summon a Fossil Dyna and pray to God. Sometimes you just gotta normal summon Dyna, set 4, activate Card Demise, and then just like let it rip, baby. You know what I'm saying? It very much is just a reality of the game type beat, and like stun, unfortunately, for better and for worse, is a reality within the game. And while I do completely understand the idea where it is a very frustrating experience, it's one of those things that's going to be here to stay. So learning how to play against it and with it and understand why it exists is important for anyone who does play this sort of game. Not just in Yu-Gi-Oh, but in, you know, games like Magic the Gathering, where they have like prison decks and etc. It is a very important stepping stone as a player for you to make, for you to like ask yourself, like, is this a game that I am going to be able to stick with full time, even though certain decks are very unpleasant to play against, or am I just gonna be like, fuck it and dip, you know what I mean? But that's just me. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comment section down below regarding Stunge, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.